So let's get going. Greetings and thanks to everyone tuning in for tonight's special presentation. My name is Seth Benz and I'm the Bird Ecology Director at the Schoodic Institute in Acadia National Park. Schoodic Institute is a nonprofit organization and a primary partner of Acadia, assisting with ecological research and education, as well as science communication. Our mission is inspiring science, learning, and community for a changing world. This evening's presentation highlights a long-term monitoring project regarding the dynamics and wonders of bird migration, specifically hawk migration. The Cadillac Mountain Hawk Watch is turning 30 this year. There are many people that have contributed to and sustained this effort. There have been many thousands of visitors who have educationally benefited from a partnership of operation between Acadia National Park's interpretive rangers, Friends of Acadia's support of a Raptor ranger position, and Schoodic Institute's dedicated volunteer counters and observers. Our fall seasonal data is submitted to the Hawk Migration Association of North America. Our guest speaker this evening has intimate knowledge of that organization. Julie Brown will speak about HMANA's work and the continental network of hawk watching sites. She will illuminate what we are learning about raptor movements and populations, and will dive into some species stories from the migration data from our very own Cadillac Mountain Hawk Watch. Julie is the Raptor Migration and Programs Director at the Hawk Migration Association of North America. Before joining HMANA in 2009, Julie migrated throughout the United States and tropics, working as a field biologist, primarily with raptors, focusing on human impact studies, migration research, and behavioral studies. She has received her BS in wildlife ecology from the University of Maine and received her master's in conservation biology from Antioch University of New England, where she studied peregrine falcon migration in Costa Rica for her thesis. She lives in New Hampshire with her husband, whom she met while hawk watching, and she has 2 bird-loving children, a flock of chickens, her dog, and lots of fruit trees. She is currently a volunteer counter at the HMANA Raptor Migration Observatory in New Hampshire each fall. As I said earlier to some of you that were already on, please list any questions you have in the chat, and Julie will attend to those as time allows following the presentation. Without further ado, here is Julie Brown.
Wow, thank you so much, Seth, for that introduction. I'm so happy to be here and to talk to this group tonight. There's no better time than during fall migration to talk about raptor migration. And you're all in my favorite state. I love Maine and Acadia, the whole Schoodic Peninsula. It's one of my favorite places in the whole world. So I love this area, and I hope to get up again soon for some migration. So I will talk a bit about HMANA and what we do, and really what we, hold on, I'm trying to, there we go. What we do at HMANA as an organization. I'll talk a little bit about how raptor monitoring evolved in this country, why it's important, and what we're learning. So I do have some trend graphs from Cadillac Mountain and from around the country to kind of give you a sense of how raptors are doing based on what we know from migration monitoring. So I like to kind of start at the beginning. Some of you may not be as familiar with hawk watching as other people, but basically hawk watching is collecting migration data from one location in a standardized way, day after day, year after year, from places like beautiful Cadillac Mountain or the Mississippi River or the coastline, usually north to south running ridge lines, any kind of topographic feature that's going to steer the birds south or north or whichever direction they're going in the spring and fall. And really collecting this data is really helping us better understand the whole life history of birds. It's a big chunk of their life that they spend on migration, not just in their wintering grounds and their breeding grounds, but that a lot of many months spent on the wing migrating. And so studying them on migration lets us understand a lot about them. And they can be great indicators of the health of our ecosystem, can learn a lot about their movements. And it's definitely a great education tool for anyone who's ever been at a hawk watch and seen a little kid or even a grown-up see a bald eagle or a merlin or an osprey for the first time. It's a great way to just hook people on nature and engage with them. And it's totally addictive. I will admit I am addicted to hawk watching. And so much fun because you never know what you're going to see. So HMANA is 50 years. This year we celebrate our 50th anniversary, and we are kind of a support organization for the network of watch sites. So HMANA itself does not run any hawk watch sites. We are the organization that has developed the data sheets, and we have a database that houses all the data for people. We have educational resources for sites. We help them raise money. I like to think of us as the organization that really gets people excited about migration. Is in addition to the protocols and the data sheets and all that, there's a lot of magic that comes with migration, and it's something we are always striving to do, is to excite people about migration. So the organization was largely volunteer for the first 30 years, and we've grown a lot in the last 20. I came on as one of the first staff people in 2009. And we've had a couple directors over the years. Right now, it's just me and an administrative assistant. And we have a very large board. And these are all the committees that are doing great work every month. So we have a large board, and they're spread across the Americas, Canada, the US, Mexico, down to Colombia. We have board members, and everybody's working on these committees to do great work. So it's kind of a small organization doing a lot of big things. And this Raptor Migration Monitoring Network is kind of amazing. There are almost 500 sites, a lot of those not active now. There's just about 200 that are actively collecting data in the spring and fall seasons. Now, this map is a little outdated. I think since then, it needs to be updated to include Venezuela and Cuba. We have a few more sites in Western Canada, so I need to get a more accurate map, but it gives you an idea of kind of where the sites are. A lot of them in the east, they're kind of on top of each other on the East Coast. There's a lot of migration happening there down the Appalachians and along the coastline. There's also a lot of birders. So it tells you that also. In the middle of the country, there's definitely some migration happening, but not as many people willing to start sites. So we need better coverage. We're always trying to get people to start new sites. But primarily, sites are volunteer-based community science projects, but lots of them have paid counters, are run by a number of various state agencies, bird organizations, Audubon chapters, and the project history is listed here. It gives you an idea how long sites have been collecting data. More than 50 years, unbelievably, some of these sites. And there's new sites starting each year, which is good to see. And they vary greatly, as you can imagine, with sites stretching from Colombia up to Alaska and Canada. Some of them are very remote, some of them are in urban settings. Some people have to count in 3 feet of snow, while others are in deserts. And Hawkwatch International is an organization you may have heard of. They were founded just a decade after HMANA in the 80s, and they run 8 Western sites and then report their data to our database. And lots of variability. So sometimes sites are very data oriented and they may want to be part of RPI, which is our Raptor Population Index, which helps us kind of determine raptor populations, which I'll speak about later. Others aren't really concerned about the data and they just want to see big numbers of broadwing hawks, and it's kind of a social thing, and they're out there for maybe a week or two a year. Other counts are elementary schools, and they go out for a week every year and enjoy the migration. So lots of different goals. Lots of sites have different goals, and we support them all. And some of them are follow standardized protocol and are in it for the long haul. So there's lots of variability. And there's definitely a certain camaraderie with hawk watching. This is out at Illinois Beach State Park, and I don't know why I love this photo, but it just speaks to the camaraderie of hawk watching, never really knowing what that next bird is going to be. I love the discussion at hawk watches. People get excited about what that next bird might be. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of talk about weather, and who brought the best snacks. It's just a fun, usually welcoming group. And this is a picture. They're also a hardy bunch. As this picture shows, this is my home hawk watch, Pac Monadnock in New Hampshire. And sometimes the fog rolls in and people just stick around because they want to see that fog lift and what might be in store when it does. So this kind of cracks me up. And when it does lift, you might be treated to a view like this. This is a rainstorm kind of moving across the plains in front of us. The White Mountains to the north, we can see the mountains of Vermont to our west, even the bridge to Maine over in the northeast. You can see Boston from the other side. So you get treated to a lot of beautiful sights, as you guys know, if you've been to Cadillac, one of the most beautiful hawk watches I've been to. And sometimes you're treated to looks like this. Beautiful up close raptors, especially if you're lucky enough to be on a mountaintop and they're flying low that day. Sometimes they look like that, or even just specks, tiny, tiny distant specks. But however you see them, it's always amazing. And I always feel so honored just to be part of the migration phenomenon, whether it is, an up close sharp-shinned hawk or some distant bald eagle like this one. Migration monitoring is an amazing way to keep track of species. These are Mississippi kites on migration down in Veracruz, Mexico. So obviously, as you go further south, the numbers grow. A lot of these birds are traveling through bottlenecks as they head south. So if you go to the coast of Texas or Veracruz or down through Central America, you're treated by large numbers, sometimes the entire pretty much every individual of an entire species can pass over your heads, which is pretty amazing. And migration monitoring is also a great opportunity to monitor non-raptor species, other warblers and monarchs. We partner with MonarchNet, so we send all our data that hawk watchers collect throughout the fall season and spring seasons to their database so they can make sense of how how monarch populations are doing. We do the same with dragonflies. Some hawk watchers want to count dragonflies. And other species, other water birds, pelicans, Project Nighthawk. We partner with lots of different organizations to share data. Because if you have hawk watchers standing up on mountaintops for 8 hours a day for 3 months, it's a good opportunity to count everything. And most hawk watchers I know want to count everything. It's part of the fun. So this scene might be familiar to some of you. This is Hawk Mountain in Pennsylvania. Always a really popular place in the fall. And this guy right here kind of started it all. You know, people have known for a long time that migration monitoring is an important way to track raptor populations, but this Hawk Mountain was the very first refuge for birds of prey, and that was following years of slaughter and just mass shooting in the 1920s. So the history of modern hawk watching was initiated by Maurice Bruin. That's him here doing his first count in 1934. And by 1935, one other site had followed suit. That was Wagner's Cap in Westchester, Pennsylvania, right nearby. And it started catching on. There were a couple more sites that started counting in the early 1950s. This is Hanging Rock Tower in West Virginia. I got a chance to visit this site a couple of years ago, and it's just fantastic. Mount Peter started counting in 1958. I should mention the birds that these guys were counting back then are very different from the birds we see now. There's a lot of big changes to raptor populations over the years. Hawk Ridge started counting out in Minnesota in the 1960s. And then things kind of got interesting in the 70s. A group of Connecticut hawk watchers started the New England Hawk Watch group, and they started organizing weekend counts. And this was some of the efforts that started HMANA. So HMANA started in 1974, and everybody was interested in tracking the migration of these birds, but there wasn't much standardization. People were using different kinds of data forms and comparing them. So HMANA was the organization that started the first green sheets. And Seth on the call here said he was actually instrumental in these efforts when he lived back in Pennsylvania years ago. So bravo, Seth, for being part of this effort and getting things going. These are just some pictures from one of the publications in the early 70s. And these were some of the sites that they were collecting from. It was mostly Connecticut, Massachusetts, that area. But pretty interesting. So these are the green sheets here, and sites would fill out their data and submit it to HMANA, and then they would wait all year. At the end of the year, they would get a report that would come out with how raptors did, or what was counted at all the various sites. So this here was the first report in 1974 that HMANA came out with. Cape May, New Jersey, a really popular site. This started 1976. And hawk watching really became very popular. I would say in the mid 70s is kind of when we had the peak number of sites. People were exploring new potential sites. Not a lot of them are active today, but a lot of experimental sites to see what was a good site and what wasn't. Golden Gate was started in the mid 80s. And then a very important site, Veracruz, Mexico. You've probably heard of the River of Raptors down in Veracruz, one of the largest migration bottlenecks in the world. And this is such an important site because of how just the volume, how many birds pass over Veracruz on their way to Central and South America every year. So this is a really important one. And hawk count started in 2000, and HMANA transitioned from collecting and storing hawk migration data on paper to a fully electronic system. And I hope some of you have been to Hawk Count. It's a really wonderful website. If you haven't been to it, please check it out. It's hawkcount.org. And it's open and free to everybody. Anyone can use the information if you want to use it for a scientific paper or analyze data. You just have to write to me and I'll get permission from the site owners. HMANA doesn't own any of the data. It's owned all by the people, the Hawkwatch sites and the people that collect it. And there's just so much amazing information. If you go to this website, you can go this time of night and see what's been seen today. Like today we had, oh my gosh, 16,000 hawks were counted, mostly broadwings at Hawk Ridge in Minnesota. Kip to Peak down in Virginia. I'll be there in a couple weeks visiting. They had 1,000 kestrels today and 1,000 sharpshin hawks. So it's really fun to just go on and not just see what your local site has seen, but all these fun sites. You know, what are they counting down in Central America, and what are they starting to see in Colombia? You can really trace the journey of these birds. Here's just a few things that you can look up on Hawk Count. I wanted to highlight the sites up in your neck of the woods in Maine. There's 10 sites, but just 4 of them active right now. So I'm sure you're familiar with some of these. We've got Cadillac Mountain. Bradbury is in Pownell. That's a spring site. And then Cooper way up north, and Clary Hill. And we always pay close attention to what Clary Hill is seeing at Packmanadnock down here in New Hampshire, because that tends to be a lot of the same birds that we see. And when you go onto Hawk Count, you can look under each site for its site profile, and there's loads of information there, not just what they've seen for the day, but you can get a sense for how to get to a site, what's the topography like, what's their history. You can look at the migration windows for any given species, you know, to see when they fly through, an inventory of all the data they have collected over the years. And there's graphs like this that show, or tables like this that show highlights for all your species totals. So this is just a snapshot of Cadillac's totals over the years, some of them. And moving on from Hawk Count, we do offer a lot of educational materials. We don't have a home base like a lot of organizations do. So we have a lot of materials online. We give slideshows and Hawk ID presentations. We offer different movies and silhouette guides. We have a new Junior Hawk Watcher guide that we've just renovated this year to be a little bit more updated and incorporate more of migration. Here's the cover. My son, who's now 9, made the cover of it, pointing at a turkey vulture. But if you are interested, Seth, in getting any of these for Cadillac, I'd be happy to send you some. And it's usually for kind of elementary school, middle school age, and after kids complete the Junior Hawk Watcher guide, they can get a decal. So it's pretty fun. HMANA offers a lot of tours, and this year we're not doing too much because we're offering a conference in November. But next year we're going to have a Golden Eagle tour, to Montana, something else coming in the spring. But it's neat. It's neat. We usually offer 2 or 3 a year. Here's a few from a couple of years ago, usually migration themed. So we went and saw the migration in Spain. We had a winter raptor photography tour to Duluth, and we go to see the migration in Veracruz every couple of years. International Hawk Migration Week is happening now. It's just a week, the biggest week for hawk count, when we see the most numbers come into hawk count. So we usually pick it, choose like the third week in September each year. And it's just a chance to kind of shine the light on all the sites in the migration monitoring network. So banners, we give sites banners and they display them for the week. And it's a great opportunity for sites to have festivals and Hawk ID workshops and things like that. It's also a great opportunity to introduce young people to hawk watching, because we need more of that. We're going to be having our big hawk release event tomorrow, no, Sunday, at Pac Monadnock, where we have rehabilitated a few rehabilitated birds. So we work with a local rehabber, and she brings them up, and we release them, and lots of people get to see them up close. Switching gears to Winter Raptor Survey, I'll just mention this quickly. This is kind of a neat program that we have. This is a whole separate database from our hawkcount.org. But we encourage people to develop winter driving routes just to keep an eye on raptor populations. So this is a survey that you do year after year. It's a driving route. You come up with it yourself, and people are doing this all across the country. And we're building quite a database of just what birds are where from year to year. And it's helping us kind of better understand raptor movements, because just relying on migration data is just kind of a piece of the puzzle, and breeding data is another piece, and wintering is as well. So this is kind of a fun way to track winter movements of raptors. We do offer Hawkwatch Fund grants and research award grants each year. And this is one of my favorite things about HMANA, is just giving back to sites. Often it's optics and interpretive signs. It might be funds to hire counters or interpretive naturalists. So many hawk watches are struggling to stay afloat. It's really hard to find either, raise money to have a paid counter, or just finding young people who are able to and interested in counting. It's just getting harder and harder. I think younger people are being torn in a lot of different directions, and it's hard. It's not always easy to do as a young person, is because there's not often a lot of money associated with hawk watching. And maybe some young people aren't as interested in standing in one position for a long period of time, unlike some other people. So we're always trying to help sites as best we can. Our Raptorathon, this happens every spring, and this is a great way to support the network of sites. So basically, it's like a birdathon, if you've heard of that. So sites, or not necessarily Hawkwatch sites, but anybody can participate in Raptorathon, and you pick a Hawkwatch that you want to support, and you go out for a big day of birding and see as many birds as you can, either all birds or just raptors. And then they split those proceeds. So half of it will fund HMANA programming, and half of that money goes back to the sites. So we have more and more teams every year, and it's been a lot of fun. You guys probably know this view. This is me and my family, maybe 6 years ago, judging how little my kids are here. But We try to get around and do Raptor road trips a lot. My kids love to come with me. And my husband, Phil, here, he is the chair of the tour committee. He leads a lot of tours for HMANA and does a lot of Raptor research himself. So he loves to come, and it's my favorite part of my work at HMANA is meeting with hawk watchers, seeing how sites are run, and answering questions. I know I got to meet some of the counters years ago. Maybe some of you guys are on the call, but I had such a great day up there, seeing how things work. I love hearing what challenges sites are facing, and just what HMANA can do to help sites out better. This was from a couple years ago. I went down to the Carolinas, Tennessee, West Virginia. Hawk watchers are such wonderful people. I really love spending time with them. And switching gears, what all that data is used for, RPI is the Raptor Population Index. And this is basically a way of taking that long-term migration data and figuring out how raptor populations are doing. We don't use all the data that comes into hawk count, and I have a slide on the criteria of how to become part of RPI. Cadillac Mountain is one of those sites, and it's a partnership. So this is something that HMANA works together with Hawk Mountain, with Hawkwatch International, and Birds Canada. And in order to be part of RPI, you need to have follow a standardized protocol, either the HMANA protocol or something very similar. That's kind of the only way we can make sure data is coming in a standardized way. We find it helpful to have at least 10 years of data. So some of those new sites are not able to be part of RPI, but I know several that are so close to 10 years, and they're so excited to be part of RPI in the next few years. And there needs to be at least 75% of the migration season covered. So if it's a site that only counts for a few weeks throughout the fall or spring, it's probably not going to be quite enough for us to really use that data and analyze it. So part of my job as part of the RPI committee is going through all these protocols, looking at how sites collect data, talking to them about just how long their days are, and how many people count year to year, and whether or not things are standardized or not. And we do have an RPI website, rpi-project.org. If you have not had a chance to check this out, please do. On this website just came, we actually received a grant to upgrade this website. So this is new within the last year and a half. And we have it's a lot more user-friendly than it was. We have a lot of trend graphs. You can read raptors at risk and raptors on the rise, and different species assessments for each of the 27 species. Read about the methodology. And our last analysis was using data through 2019. We do have a new analysis that is ready, that's using data through the fall of 2023. It's not yet online. It's been proofed by all the site leaders, but we just have to take that final step in the next month or so and get all that data uploaded. I do have some of the trend graphs, though, that I'll show you that are the most recent. But pretty impressive. Every time we run an analysis, which is just every few years, we take on more sites. There's more RPI sites. So the last analysis, I think we had 76 sites that fit the RPI criteria. And this year we have 80. So that's great. And 28 raptor species. So what we learned, some of the things we have learned from analyzing this long-term migration data, we've broken down into, different species assessments and kind of regional assessments, because a species may be doing okay in the East Coast, but really declining out west. It's kind of hard. It's hard when you're talking about a migratory species to say, across the board it's declining, or across the board it's increasing, because it's really difficult. Region, can really vary region to region. But we try to do our best, and we just in the last year came up with this raptors at risk and raptors on the rise to kind of make it a little easier for people to interpret. But the red research and conservation priority group was determined for a species that showed the highest proportion of declines during the migration count. And then we are using it together with Christmas bird count data, because again, like I said earlier, the migration data is just kind of a piece of the puzzle. So we're kind of overlaying it with Christmas bird count data, and that helps us get a better idea of how some of these species are doing. So the red here and the orange you can read is kind of different priority levels. And then we have these trend maps and pie charts as well. So these maps are kind of cool because they show everywhere you see an arrow or a blue circle, and you may have to adjust your screen so you can see this whole map. Some of it is blocked with my, move it a little bit, but you can see the RPI trends are showing quite simply increasing, decreasing, or stable with the blue dot. And then all those shaded states are showing the Christmas bird count data trends. So the gray is stable, pink is decreasing, and green is increasing. So it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. And then these pie charts are for the different regions. So you have here, let's see, all of North America on the far left. This is for sharp-shinned hawk, for instance. And then you have a pie chart for the East, for the Gulf, for Central, and for West. So a lot of information, and you can spend all day on this RPI website really picking it apart. So some of the trends I'm showing you, I'm just going to run through some of the species to give you an idea. These maps and pie charts are using data through 2019 because we haven't yet gotten that up on the website. The trend graphs I'll show you are through data using last year. And these, I'm not going to get too technical with the trend graphs, but just the takeaway here, pay attention to this orange line. So the left-hand side of the graph is basically individual birds detected per day of survey. So you're looking at just a change over time. And this, as a sharp-shinned hawk, you can see the numbers going down. So sharp-shins are one of the high priority species that appears to be declining. And I just have a couple different sites here to kind of give you a sense. This one is from the spring site, Bradbury Mountain, up in Maine. And this one here is Kiptoo Peak. This is another site on the coast, Virginia, and they see a lot of sharp-shinned hawks, and you can see the decline over the years. And over the last 20 years, counts have declined almost 50%, or at 50% of the sites. And so that ranks it as one of the most declining species of all the 27 migratory raptors. Probably won't have a lot of time to talk about why some of these species are declining with sharpshins and with many raptors. Sharpshins in particular, probably a loss of forest habitat in the boreal region, loss of prey species. It could be a number of things, environmental contaminants and West Nile virus. But moving on to another species of concern, this is the northern harrier, as we are seeing a lot of habitat loss with grasslands and marshlands. So you can kind of get a sense looking at this map. Look at all those red downward arrows, especially in the east, where we're losing a lot of that habitat. I have a Cadillac mountain graph here, just showing since 98 through last fall. You can see a slight decline overall. This is my local site in New Hampshire showing northern harrier declines. Not a strong decline, but certainly some declines over the years. Osprey, I wanted to show this one because it's an interesting species. This is one that has been climbing and climbing and climbing and increasing really for decades. And it seems to have started to level off. And we're actually seeing declines in some areas, not so much on the coast, but some inland eastern sites in the Great Lakes, Appalachia, not so much in the east or the west. So it's kind of interesting to see, and there's been some speculation on why this is happening, if this is kind of a natural plateau for the species after climbing for so many years, or one of the theories is competition with bald eagles as they continue to soar. Those populations, maybe they're being outcompeted a bit. So this trend graph is from Cadillac, showing a slight decline there. I tried to pick a variety of sites. Quaker Ridge is one of the sites that has shown an inland decline of the species. And Pac Monadnock in New Hampshire, we definitely, our numbers of osprey have really plummeted over the years. Here's Cape May down in New Jersey. This is one, they see a lot of osprey, and as you can see, that doesn't seem to be declining. A lot of the coastal sites are still kind of seeing that trend go up and up. So it's interesting. Merlin is a species that seems to be stable. I think increasing in the east. So you can see here, there's a lot of those blue dots, a lot showing stable at a lot of sites. Also CBC data as well, or increasing. So that's good news for this little falcon. Here's a trend graph from Cadillac. It looks like there's been a little bit of a decline of that species. And Tadoussac, which is up in Quebec, they see a lot of merlins at that site and showing definitely an increase there, which is great. Way up in the boreal forest. There are species on the rise. These 4 species in particular, peregrine falcons continue to climb, bald eagles, turkey vultures, and black vultures. Vultures are definitely becoming more common here in New Hampshire. Turkey vultures are regular nester with black vultures. We see more and more of them each spring. But the dark green is showing the lowest proportion of declines during migration counts and CBC surveys, with the light green are approaching the lowest proportion. So it's just kind of a a way for us to let people know easily how these species are doing. Species that were not on the raptors at risk or raptors on the rise, the stable ones, species that would fit under that category would include the golden eagle, Cooper's hawk, Merlin, broadwing hawk, red tails. Those are more or less stable. So peregrine, here's a map showing they're in pretty good shape. They're holding their own, doing pretty well. A few declines in northeastern sites. Here's a trend graph from Cadillac showing pretty steady. And Cape May, they see a lot of peregrines down there on the coast of New Jersey. And this is a trend graph from some of these. I should have explained this. Some of these are 10-year, some of these are 20-year, and some of them are more than that, 30-year graphs. It's kind of a mix in this presentation, but this is kind of interesting to look and see where peregrines have gone, how far they've come since the 1970s and in the DDT era, when there were not many of them around. And bald eagle, this is definitely conservation success story for sure. And they continue to grow. Everybody is seeing eagles. I hope you're seeing, I'm sure you're seeing them up in your neck of the woods. But they are doing very well across the map. This is Cadillac's trend graph showing bald eagles. It's a beautiful growth curve there. And here is Greenlaw Mountain. This is New Brunswick, not far from where you guys are. A big jump in migration counts over the years. In Hawk Mountain, this is just since 1990. It's interesting looking at the bald eagle graph from 1930. I should have included that one. It's an incredible jump from in that many years. And broadwing hawk, this may be one of the last ones I've included, but this appears to be more or less stable. There's been some sites that are decreasing, but it's showing stable at all the major sites in Texas and Veracruz, where the majority of the species is represented, is monitored every fall and spring. So that's good news for that species. And here is a trend graph, Allegheny front. Okay, this is in Pennsylvania. They tend to see a lot of broadwings there. And let's see, who else did I have? Oh, here's a graph of broadwing hawks since the 1930s. It's interesting to see when those big years are. Not every year, because that's how broadwings are. They come in these big waves and you don't see the same big numbers every year, but you do if you're lucky. So not too much time to talk about threats to raptors, but these are some of the major ones. I think a lot of declines can be associated with habitat loss. That tends to be the big one for birds, forest fragmentation, whether it's affecting birds on their breeding grounds or while they're migrating or where they're wintering, wherever they happen to winter. Habitat loss seems to be the biggest one. Rodenticide is getting a lot of attention lately, and I hope it continues to. We need a lot more education there as we realize how much damage it's doing to raptor populations and wildlife in general. Pesticides, declining prey, especially insect populations are all down. Climate change is certainly is going to and is having an impact on raptors, whether it's storms or fires or just changing the how birds migrate really, and you know, some birds may be able to react more quickly than others. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. West Nile virus, bird flu, things like that. So they have a lot of challenges they're up against. But I'm glad that RPI is running these analyses every few years. We're learning a lot. We're writing some scientific papers based on these data. We're hoping to get everything up online very soon. So visit that RPI site if you want to learn more, dig in a little more deeply to why some of these species are declining. There's a lot of great information there. So we're going to be looking forward to expanding coverage, hopefully bringing new sites that fit the criteria on each year, and just trying to get this information in front of policymakers, in front of people who are making decisions in state planning for birds. All these reports for state of the bird, whatever states happen to be working on, we want to get this RPI information in front of the right people as well as the public. So HMANA, we have this journal that comes out twice a year, which has flyway reports and hawk migration, you know, research articles and upcoming tour summer, you know, advertisements for tours or tour summaries. And you can become a HMANA member by checking out HMANA.org. We have an e-news letter that I send out a couple times a month if you want to stay up to date with what's going on. We offer a lot of merchandise, a lot of migration themed gear. If you are inspired, you want a HMANA hat or a t-shirt or decal or a silhouette guide, there's a lot. And we do connect with people monthly. If anybody's interested, check out HMANA.org. We have a lunch and learn series. This is just a free monthly event, a lot like this one. And we feature different Raptor researchers or educators once a month. And you just tune in at noon, bring your lunch, and learn a bit about birds. So, you know, in October, we're going to be featuring a wildlife biologist who studies ferruginous hawks out west. And that's a species we don't often hear about. It's not widely monitored in the HMANA Hawk Count Network. So I'm excited about that one. And we have a big conference coming up. This is our 50th anniversary, and it's going to be partnering with the Hawk Ridge Bird Observatory in Duluth. So if anybody has been always wanting to get to Duluth, it's great northern birds, a lot of specialties. It's going to be during goshawk and rough-legged hawk and golden eagle season. Lots of owl banding. It's going to be a blast. So it's going to basically be 2 days of presentations, Raptor research presentations and poster sessions and all that fun stuff. But we also have a virtual option. If anyone's interested, go to HMANA.org and you can learn how to take part in that. I think it's $50, $60 for a full day of Raptor programs. It's going to be fun. So I think that's pretty much it. I want to really thank Cadillac Mountain for all the Raptor monitoring you do every day, every year, for being such great partners. And we're so proud of everybody for the hard work and your dedication and involvement in the RPI project. It really helps us better understand our Raptor populations and keep up all the great work. So I think that's it, but please let me know if you have any questions.
Well, thank you, Julie, for a great, inspiring program. We do have a few questions if you have a moment or two to tackle some of
Sure.
those. Let you get a swallow of water there.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, looks like we have some questions from some of our knowledgeable folks here that actually count on Cadillac. The first one is you showed a brief trend of black vultures. And so the question is, what are the black vulture trends doing, and when did you start seeing them?
That's a good question. Yeah, well, they are increasing um across the HMANA network. So they are definitely increasing and they're making their way north. If you haven't seen them at Cadillac Mountain, I suspect you're going to be seeing them soon. We've only ever counted, I think, one or two at Pac-Monadnock over the years, but um, we do see them every spring, and we know that they're nesting kind of on the border of New Hampshire, Vermont. So it's just a matter of time. I think as our winters get a little milder, they're sticking around. Hawk Mountain has a black vulture research project, so they've been studying that species for a long time. And I think uh, probably 10-year trend. I think in the last 10 years, they have been increasing. Um, but it's on the RPI website. I'm not certain when they started increasing, but it's probably the last, 10, 20 years they've been growing in numbers and making their way further north.
Yeah, I think that trend is a phenomenon, like you say, of the last 10 or 15 years, and it's mostly mid-Atlantic driven at this stage of the game.
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I don't think we have one official black vulture on the Cadillac count. I'm sure Angie will correct me if I'm wrong. Um, the next question, can you explain the Clary Hill to New Hampshire connection? How do you know they are the same birds? And what about Cadillac? Where do our birds go next?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Oh, man. I don't know that they are the same birds. We are in touch with the counters at Clary Hill, and we tend to it's kind of a big mystery where birds are going and what flight lines they're following, right? I mean, weather has so much to do with it. And birds they go where the wind takes them. And we kind of watch and see what birds are being seen to our north. So I would say, looking at a map, if you follow kind of the topography roughly from Clary Hill down the Appalachians, right where we are in southwestern New Hampshire, it makes sense that birds would kind of follow that line. That being said, I might be full of it. It could be they're not necessarily the same exact birds, but there does seem to be a correlation when they have a big day. Sometimes it means if the same winds continue, we might see birds a day or two, the next day. If it's been a big broadwing flight, we might see that same flight the next day. Yeah, with Cadillac, when you're on the coast, um, your birds probably heading right down that main coast. A lot of them staying on the coast.
Mhm.
Again, a lot's happening. A lot depends on the wind. So if you've got a strong east wind, a lot of those birds might end up further inland or further to the west. Um, or the more adult birds might take more of the inland route, and the juveniles might get pushed more to the coast. So I would think, gosh, with where your birds are going, probably down, some of the birds some of the sites in coastal Massachusetts. Definitely Connecticut, Lighthouse Point is a big site on the Connecticut coast. And then further south, like maybe I should look back at one of these. Let me pull up a map here.
Well, I know our watchers like to kind of watch what happens at Greenlaw to our north, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that would
and
be a.
yeah, so
Have
we
you
kind of
have you
watch
noticed any kind of correlation between Greenlaw
uh,
and Cadillac?
a little bit. It seems like there are sometimes when they have a decent Broadwing flight, we won't get that same flight, but we get maybe a residual or a portion of that flight, and I know that excites
Mhm.
our observers there. It's difficult to
Yep,
track the coast. You're absolutely right that most of our birds are immature birds, especially the sharpshins and kestrels, which make up the
yeah,
majority of our flights. And you know,
right,
Broadwings are just spotty as you illuminate
right,
in your presentation. And birds just don't
right,
like
right,
to go out over water. So um,
right.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I wish I had better information for where your birds are coming from, where your birds are going. I don't know. I know we stay in close communication with Mount Watatic, which is just south. It's on the same ridge that Pac-Monadnock is on, and then Wachusett Mountain is kind of at the end of that. Putney Mountain to our west. So it's interesting to see what the birds do in different winds, and even when you are so certain we are going to get those birds after a big day someone north of you has, you're not you're not guaranteed to see them. They could be too high, they could be just a little bit east. So it can be frustrating, but it's a
Well,
lot of fun.
yes, well, you're giving us some great incentive for future research at Cadillac, so
Right.
that's good.
Yeah.
Another person is asking, are migration patterns in spring the reverse of the fall movements, or are
Mm.
the birds using different routes?
Yeah, that's a great question. Migration in the fall tends to be um, bigger numbers. So birds are really funneling down those Appalachians, like in the east. They're funneling down the coastlines um, in a hurry to get to their wintering grounds. But come spring, there's different prevailing winds, and birds are more spread out in general. They will concentrate in certain areas. That's what makes the Great Lakes such hot spots. Most of them are spring sites, or a lot of them are, because of how birds are funneled on their way north and not wanting to cross large bodies of water. They're kind of funneled, either in various directions. But it's definitely not as concentrated and more spread out. So yes, very different routes that birds will take, and different wind conditions in the spring from fall.
Excellent. Let's see. Maybe we could take just a couple more questions. Here's a new one coming in. I saw Panama as a site on an earlier slide, but it keeps getting cut off on my screen on migration trends. Are you collaborating with the folks there, like Canopy Tower, as well as hawk watchers in Veracruz? And if so, what does that help you understand?
Are we partnering with sites in, sorry, can you repeat that? Because I had some background noise here. Sorry, Seth.
Are you collaborating with folks like the Canopy Tower, as well as hawk watchers at Veracruz? And if so, what does that help you understand?
Yes, we are. We are in touch with folks at the Canopy Tower, with various sites in Costa Rica, in Belize, in Colombia, in Venezuela. I am kind of the point contact person at HMANA for all those site coordinators, and I hear from a lot of them on a regular basis, checking, asking data questions, letting me know what they're seeing. So yes, we are in touch with them a lot. We try to offer resources when we can, get them optics if sites are in need, and help maybe advertise to find counters. So the lines of communication are always open. It helps us understand what they need and also just what they're seeing, um, what birds are coming through, and just gives us a better understanding of what birds are where and when. So we are, it truly is an incredible community of birders. Everybody is very connected. I feel very connected during the migration season to these sites.
Yeah, that's a very special feeling. Myself, for someone who got the start there, I followed a little bit in the footsteps of Maurice Brune, as you pointed out, and I think the big thing there was that, Maurice and Irma, before they could start counting, had to stop people from shooting the hawks. And
Right,
that was
right,
sort of the end of the era of shotgun ornithology. And
exactly.
it's lovely to have a network of so many devoted folks now with binoculars counting the birds. And
Right.
kudos to Humana for bringing that all together, producing the kind of data that you do, and these trend graphs are just phenomenal. It's wonderful to see the revised website, maybe a little more user friendly. And
Yep.
thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Your work is an inspiration, and we at Cadillac really appreciate that. And I'm sure many folks at many of the hawk watching sites, and even folks that are just paying attention from a distance, really appreciate that work. And certainly the birds do. So
Yeah,
thank you, Julie,
it
very,
really
very much.
is. Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. It really is important work. I'm so happy to be part of it. And like you said, just this, it's a very impressive network of people that are all doing this because they love it and they want to help protect these birds and better understand them and appreciate them. And it's pretty phenomenal to me.
Yeah. And as you say, I think our one of our next areas of work is to recruit young people and get them interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Helping these sites stay afloat and helping them to continue this long-term data collection and just engaging more young people to carry the torch for us.
All right. So thanks very much. Have a great fall season, and I hope to see you out there on the hawk watching trail somewhere. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thanks, Seth. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everyone for your attention this evening, and we'll be sending out a message to registrants when the recording is available to all. So we look forward to seeing you there. And if you get a chance to get up to Cadillac Mountain, please come up and see us. We'll be there through the month of October. Thanks again, Julie. Have a good night. Take care.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye all.